This story comes from a close friend of mine, Sarah, who swore it really happened. She grew up in a small, quiet town where everyone knew each other. The incident took place in the late 1980s when she was a child. Sarah lived near an old, crumbling park at the edge of town. It was mostly abandoned, except for the occasional group of kids daring each other to play on the rusting swings. There was one boy, though, who seemed to always be there. He wasn't from the neighborhood. No one knew who he was. He was about 10, dressed in shabby clothes, with wide, hollow eyes that seemed far older than his age. Sarah and her friends often saw him sitting on the swings alone, staring at the ground. He never talked, never played, just sat there, swaying gently. When someone tried to approach him, he would vanish, literally disappear. One day, Sarah and her best friend Emma decided to investigate. They planned to visit the park after dark to see if the boy would still be there. As the sun set, they grabbed flashlights and sneaked out, their nerves tingling with both excitement and fear. When they arrived, the park was eerily silent, bathed in pale moonlight. Sure enough, there he was, sitting on the swing, his back to them. Sarah called out, "Hey, are you okay?" The boy didn't respond. Emma, braver than Sarah, walked closer. "What's your name?" she asked. The boy slowly turned his head, revealing a pale, expressionless face. His eyes locked onto Emma's, and she froze. "You shouldn't be here," he said in a flat, echoing voice. Before Sarah could react, the swing creaked violently as if an unseen force had grabbed it. The boy dissolved into thin air, leaving only the empty swing swaying in the breeze. Terrified, the girls ran home and told their parents, but no one believed them. Years later, Sarah learned the truth. A boy had gone missing near the park decades earlier, and his body was never found. Locals believed he had drowned in a nearby creek, but no one knew for sure. After his disappearance, people started seeing a boy matching his description at the park, sitting on the swings. Sarah swears she saw him that night, and to this day, she avoids that park whenever she visits her hometown. The swing where the boy used to sit? It's still there, creaking in the wind, even when there's no breeze.
My name is Eric, and I've been racing cars professionally for over a decade. The adrenaline, the speed, the roar of the crowd, it's everything to me. But one race changed everything. It was a regional circuit in the middle of nowhere, a track notorious for its sharp turns and deadly history. Drivers whispered about Turn 13, a curve so treacherous it had claimed 3 lives in as many years. But I didn't believe in ghost stories. Race day came, and the track was shrouded in fog, the air thick with tension. My crew prepped the car, and I got into the zone. The race began, and I felt unstoppable. By the final lap, I was neck and neck with another driver, a car I didn't recognize, a sleek black vehicle with no visible sponsors or markings. I pushed my car harder, determined to win. As we approached Turn 13, the black car gained an eerie edge. Its driver, obscured by a tinted visor, turned to look at me. My blood ran cold. His helmet was cracked, and through the gap, I saw hollow eyes and a pale, almost skeletal face. I slammed on the brakes, barely making the turn. The black car sped ahead and disappeared around the bend. When I rounded the corner moments later, the car was gone. No skid marks, no sign of a crash, nothing. Shaken, I finished the race, claiming second place. When I returned to the pits, I asked my crew about the black car. They looked at me like I was crazy. What black car? You were out there alone for the last lap. I tried to shake it off, blaming the fog and my nerves. But that night, as I reviewed the race footage, the black car was there, faint, flickering in and out of view, like a shadow. Later, I learned about a racer who had died on Turn 13 years ago. His car? A black prototype with no sponsors. His fatal crash had occurred on the final lap, just like mine. Now, every time I race, I feel it, an icy presence just behind me, the faint echo of an engine that shouldn't be there. And I know, the ghost of Turn 13 is waiting for me to join it.
I'm a dock worker at the city's largest shipping yard. The job is straightforward: unload, catalog, repeat. But there's one night I'll never forget. It was late, the yard shrouded in a thick fog that muffled all sound. My shift supervisor handed me a manifest and told me to unload a batch of containers from the Mariner Dawn, a massive cargo ship docked just hours earlier. Among them was a container marked 42, listed as unregistered cargo. No details, No destination, just a warning. Do not open. Curiosity tugged at me, but I'd seen enough weird shipments to know better than to ask questions. Still, as I approached Container 42, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The air around it felt colder, heavier, like stepping into a freezer. The container was rusted, its steel sides dented as if something had tried to escape. A faint, rhythmic banging echoed from within. I froze, heart racing. It was subtle, almost too faint to notice, but it was there. I called out, "Is someone in there?" No response, just the metallic thud of something shifting inside. Against every instinct, I grabbed my flashlight and climbed onto the platform to inspect the seals. They were intact, but scratched as if clawed by something desperate. Then I saw it, a dark, sticky substance oozing from a tiny crack near the base. It smelled like rot, sharp and putrid. I radioed my supervisor, but before he could answer, the banging grew louder, erratic, violent. Suddenly, the container began to shake. The fog around me thickened unnaturally, and I heard a sound I'll never forget. A low, guttural growl, too deep and distorted to be human. Panicked, I stumbled back as the container's doors buckled outward, straining against the locks. Something was inside, something massive, and it was trying to get out. The fog swirled as my supervisor arrived with security. "Step away from it," he barked. But before anyone could act, the container fell silent. We stared at it for what felt like an eternity. Finally, my supervisor ordered the locks reinforced and the container moved to a secure area. Whatever was inside, he didn't want it getting out. The next morning, Container 42 was gone. No record of its removal, no explanation. When I asked my supervisor, he just muttered, "Forget about it." I tried to forget, but I can't. Sometimes, late at night, I hear that same growl echoing in my dreams, followed by the unmistakable sound of metal buckling under pressure. Whatever was in Container 42, it's still out there.